Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Manene na manene gazi, bokhaitsedi le baabuti, dames and yera, and welcome to today's session on adapting to higher education. I hope you've been keeping well and safe. Since we all know that it hasn't been easy for most of us, like having to adapt to the new normal and trying to keep up with the new rules, right? And in today's presentation, we're actually aiming at assisting you as a student understand the difference between high school and university, which is something that we all wish it could have happened to us while we were still at university. And we can also agree that it can somewhat be a bit of a challenge transitioning because you're used to the lingo used in high school. Now that you're in university, almost everything is new to your eyes. So as you're about to embark on this new journey, we welcome you to Northwest University and congratulations for passing your matric. Well, my name is Ketiwe Biyo. I'm an academic advisor based at the Potchefstroom campus, and I'm with my colleague, Mrs. Rinette Kukemur, who is a senior academic advisor and is responsible for all three campuses, Vaal campus, Potchefstroom campus, and Mafikeng campus. And I would also like you to please take note that this is a shared presentation, and if you have any questions or any comments, you're more than welcome to actually add them on the comment section. So your advices will be available to respond throughout the presentation. So thank you so much for taking your time to joining us. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Rinette.
Thank you, Ketiwe. Welcome from my side as well. Students, it's great to talk to you today. Let's quickly look at the outcomes for today's session. The purpose of this webinar is to introduce you to higher education. Understanding the expectations associated with higher education will encourage your engagement and self-directedness as a learner and enable you to develop the knowledge, skills, and personal qualities that will prepare you for the current and future world. So in this webinar, we will quickly look at the NQF and the NQF levels and what they represent. We will also reflect on those transition porches from high school to higher education. We will learn what it means to be a self-directed learner. You will get a better understanding of Bloom's taxonomy in terms of the action verbs that's used within your modules. And then lastly, we will quickly discuss your modules itself with reference to study guides, learning outcomes, as well as credits and how you can utilize these to understand your modules better and obviously for better academic success. Ketiwe will now take us through the NQF.
Thank you so much, Rinette. And now that they have a clear scope of what we're going to be delivering to them, I'm sure we're probably, again, asking ourselves what the acronym NQF stands for. Well, the National Qualifications Framework is an act that has been used by the SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority, since 2008. So that was like now a long time ago before we can even finish our matric. So you're fortunate to be here. And the aim of the NQF is to actually facilitate access, mobility, and progression with education, training, and career paths, which is something that we are looking forward to, and to also enhance the quality of education and training. And then lastly, the NQF is the South African framework used to arrange levels of learning achievements, especially now when we're looking for employment, right? So most employers are actually looking for people or students rather with a certain NQF level. And then moving on to the next slide, it's always, should also remember that any certificate or qualifications obtained without your matric or without your grade 12 qualification are categorized under the first 3 NQF levels, because you now have 10 levels. So that's your general, your elementary and intermediate certificate. So an example will be your grade 9, your grade 10, and your grade 11. And there's also NQF level 4, your grade 12 certificate that is recognized nationally. This is something now that you possess already. For you to be accepted into university, you needed your NQF level 4. So welcome once again as a new student. Now that you're in higher education and you're working towards your bachelor's degree, that is the aim, right? So which is the NQF level 7. So as soon as you finish your undergrad, you'll have or you'd have possessed NQF level 7. But then before we have NQF level 7, you first need to have NQF level 5 and 6, which even if you don't receive any sort of certification, this now is your first and your second year, which my colleague Renette will now go through, especially when you now have to collect all the number of credits so that you can, at the end of the day, achieve NQF level 7. And then before you get your degree, it's actually a build on towards your certificate. Another step or another level to take after you have obtained your degree, or rather your undergraduate, is your honors degree, right? You normally hear senior students saying, I'm done with my undergraduate, now I have to pursue my studies in doing my honors degree. So your honors degree is at NQF level 8, and your master's degree, again, after your honors, is at NQF level 9. And then lastly, at NQF level 10 is your doctoral degree, your PhDs. You'll see when you go to class, some of your lecturers would have possess like a PhD, or some your masters, you'll be calling them professors. And this is, so I'm just gonna hand over to my colleague Renette to actually elaborate more on that.
Thank you, Katiwe. Yes, students, I know it's a lot of information to take in, and you don't have to memorize this, but we really just want to give you a little bit more background to understand what higher education is all about. Let's now look at the differences between school and university. And here I've made a little table for you just to explain some of the most significant differences you're going to encounter now that you are in university. In school, sometimes the learners expect prompts to be given direction and information, be reminded of steps and stages and deadlines by their teachers. While in university, students have to engage in self-directed learning, and we'll come to this word just now. In school, we had manageable content. There was enough time to do everything, but in university, you're going to have to work a little every day to get everything done. Otherwise, it's going to cause you to have to coasting and cramming to get everything done in time. In school, you as the learner followed your teacher's directions, while in university, you will have to take charge of your learning. In school, our subjects was seen as separate units who did not actually have links with one another. But in university, because you're studying towards a profession, all the modules in your course will have links with one another. And it's up to you to see those links and make those links. In school, we most of the time did surface processing, meaning passive learning, while in university, you really have to have a deep approach to learning, meaning being an active learner to get that long-term memory going. In school, we did a little reflection of what we've learned, but in university, you really have to have constant reflection and self-evaluation based on the learning outcomes of your modules of your program. In school, you are less likely to use or apply what you have learned there in a profession one day, while in university, application of what is learned in different situations is really the most important thing, because after you graduate, you will have to go and apply everything you've learned in your course to your profession. Sometimes the content seems irrelevant in school, while in university, your learning is personal and you as the student is engaged in the entire learning process the whole time. Now I want to just quickly talk about some lingo that we use here in university. In school, the teaching and learning took place in the classroom, and that's what we called it. Oh, I'm going to class. But listen, in university, this teaching and learning can take place in a lot of spaces. For example, the lecture hall, that's when you go to a class where a lecturer teaches you, but also teaching and learning can take place online on the learning management system, in our case called Ifundi. During tutorials, there's learning taking place. In SI sessions, there's learning taking place. And then remember what we said now, you have to be a self-directed learner. So even at home, the learning is going to take place. In school, we made use of a textbook to guide us in what we need to study. But in university, you have a study guide. Sometimes they also called it the module overview document. And then the learning management system, Ifundi, that will guide you with your studies. Yes, you will still maybe have a textbook, have additional resources of an online video you have to watch or an article you have to read. So you have to make sure what are these resources that you need for the teaching and the learning to happen. In school, we referred to the principal as the head of the school. In university, we have a lot of people in different managerial positions. For example, the school director of the school in which your program falls, or the deputy dean of the faculty, and then also the dean of the faculty. So take note of these. In school, we had our teacher. Now you will have a lecturer. In school, you address them with ma'am or sir, Afrikaans, juffrou or meneer. Now you have to take note of their qualifications, for example. Can you call them ma'am or sir? Or maybe they have a doctorate degree and you have to talk address them as doctor or even professor. Make sure you take note of these things. I want to show you a quick video that was made by Northwest University students on these differences between school and university.
I think the major difference between school and university is that in school, your time and your schedule was structured and monitored by your family and your teachers. However, in university, you need to know that you will be the one to create a schedule and to stick to it.
At school, you relied on your teachers to help you with academic activities and also to determine what your responsibilities are. But here in university, you need to decide on your own what your priorities are and choose any activities that you want to partake in. And lastly, you need to take full responsibility of your studies.
Going to school is very different from university. When you go to school, you have a scheduled time and attend class one after the other. But it's very important for you to realize that in university, if you work remotely, it is important to make time to keep up. If you have classes on campus, you often have free spaces between classes, and it is up to you on how you make the time.
What I remember from school is teachers used to write on boards and we would write exactly what they wrote, and that was our notes. However, lecturers do expect students to be able to take notes and decide from themselves what is important. They do take into account the study guides. The study guides have specific outcomes in each module, so you will know exactly what you need to do and exactly what you need to learn. But note-taking is crucial. Whenever you are in a class and you have a face-to-face contact with your lecturer, do write notes. Trust me, it is important.
I remember in school, I only had to listen attentively in class, and it was enough. Whenever I had to read something, it will be short sections that were already discussed and explained in class by my teachers, which means I was just doing a short revision. But I realized coming to varsity, it is very important to acquire the skill of writing, because I have to read chapters in my textbooks, and there's content that I have to go through on my own because they will not be discussed in the classroom. Reading and writing are really skills that you can develop, and the Northwest University is providing the support for you to do so. One significant difference between school and university is that at school, the teachers, they provided the knowledge and facts, and to some extent, they will really guide the learners through the thinking process. But now at university, things are totally different because the lecturers are expecting students to think critically, to make applications, and to gather relevant information so that we can solve problems. It sounds like it's a long list, but really don't worry, because it is the most exciting aspect of university. And now I'm thinking about when I was doing my first year, I'm realizing that my lecturers provided the guidance so that I start thinking about what I'm learning and I question the concepts independently. But also remember, the university environment gives you the opportunity to apply what you are learning.
So let's talk about being a self-directed learner and what it means to be a self-directed learner. Now, here is a definition from Knowles from 1975 already, saying that self-directed learning describes a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating learning goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating then the learning outcomes. So this means that you, as a self-directed learner, take responsibility for your own learning. You need to stand on your own 2 feet and remember that nobody is going to remind you to do things. You are responsible for your own academic progress and development. Now, self-directed learning is a 4-step process. Learning independently can be challenging, even for the brightest and most motivated student. And as a means of better understanding the process involved in this mode of study, this teaching and learning tip outlines the key components of 4 key stages to this independent learning, known as self-directed learning: being ready to learn, setting learning goals, engaging in the learning process, and then evaluating your learning. So when we assess our readiness to learn, you need various skills and attitudes towards learning for successful independent study. And this steps involves you conducting a self-evaluation of your current situation, your study habits, your family situation, your support network, and it involves also evaluating past experiences with independent learning. So signs of readiness to learn for self-directed learning include being autonomous, organized, self-disciplined, able to communicate effectively, and able to accept constructive feedback and engage in self-evaluation and self-reflection. The second step is now setting learning goals. Communication of learning goals is critical. A critical step in developing a clear understanding of learning goals is to consider the following: goals for the unit of study, structure and sequence of activities, a timeline maybe, detail about resource materials that you will need for each goal. What's the grading process going to be like? Feedback and evaluation as each goal is completed. Maybe a meeting plan with a study group or an advisor or your lecturer, etc. And then also to then engage in the learning process. You as the student need to understand yourself as a learner in order to understand your needs as a self-directed learner. You should consider answering the following questions. What are my needs? Meaning instructional methods. Who was my favorite lecturer and why? What did they do that was different from other lecturers? You need to understand your approach to studying. A deep approach, a surface approach, and a strategic approach are all things you need to consider here. And then step 4, evaluating your learning. For you to be successful in self-directed learning, you must be able to engage in self-reflection and self-evaluation of your learning goals and the progress in the study unit. To support the self-evaluation process, you should seek for feedback and engage in reflection of your achievements, which involves asking, how do I know that I have learned? Am I flexible in adapting and applying the knowledge? Do I have confidence in explaining this material to maybe another student? When do I know that I've learned enough? When is it time for self-reflection, and when is it time for consultation with my lecturer or an advisor? You need to take responsibility for this four-step process. You as a student has the role to self-assess your readiness, to define your learning goals, to monitor your own learning progress and process, take initiative for all the stages of the learning process, but while being self-motivated, and then re-evaluating and alter your goals as required. Then lastly, make sure that you consult with your lecturer, fellow students, SI leader, tutor, advisor when you need to. Katiwe will now quickly highlight for us the challenges, but also the benefits of self-directed learning.
Thank you, Vinette. I just quickly like to highlight what you just said. As a new student, responsibility is actually very, very important. And in this case, shared responsibility. Now, this will be the responsibility between a student and a lecturer. Remember, it's not the responsibility of a lecturer to see to it that you do your assignments and everything. You also need to be responsible when it comes to your studies. And thank you again for a thorough explanation on self-directed learning, being independent when you learn. I need us to not forget that we have challenges for self-directed learning. It's always, again, very important to remember that our challenges are sometimes categorized, and they might hinder us from focusing on our aimed goal. So our challenges are categorized into three in this case. So as a student, we have cognitive barriers, we have communication barriers, and then we also have educational environment barriers. So firstly, as a student, when we recognize that you have now cognitive barriers, you come across something, information overload. So now this, as a student, you might experience the feeling of anxiety and concerns caused by mismanagement of the vast volume of information, right? Remember, when you have too much information, you can't actually take in everything. You just need to know how far can your mind take? How far are you actually able to remember everything that you're learning? So you need to also know or learn how to limit yourself, especially in receiving certain information. And then secondly will be lack of focus learning. Everybody like their focus, especially when they are learning. That is one of the challenges in self-directed learning. So that is lack of focus on learning or mind wandering. You are in class, but then your mind is not there. It's somewhere else. We live in the world of technology, social media. So sometimes you'll be focused in class and then your mind is out there trying to actually make sense of everything that has been happening out there. So the sooner you actually you actually train your mind to think wherever you are, like whatever situation you're in, you train your mind to be where you are. And then secondly, communication barrier will be role uncertainty. So at the moment, as my colleague has explained, that the language has changed, the lingo has changed. You're now no longer referring to your lecturers as teachers. You now transitioned to university. So you just need to know what is your role, what is expected of you. And then it's also inconsistency between expectations of visual students and teachers, and vice versa. You just need to know that there is no barrier when it comes to your learning. And then another source under the communication barriers will be inadequate writing skills. So one of the challenges faced by the student could be lack of good writing skills. So now that you are in higher education, you actually be expected to know how to write. We actually call this academic writing. We have at the Center for Teaching and Learning people or colleagues who are there to assist you, especially when it comes to writing academically, and includes formulation of ideas and the effective textual expression, like how you express yourself, because it's different when you write poetry or when you writing your assignment or an academic paper. So you just need to know the differences. If you don't know anything, just make sure you ask. And then again, under educational environment barriers, we have inadequate coping skills. Student might think that entering remote learning or online learning or even face-to-face, and the role change from being attending student to a visual student means you're under a lot of stress. So you just need to, like, it requires you to consolidate of like adaptation skills and then student support. Just make sure that you navigate through campus resources so that you know what type of support you're going to get from all the stakeholders on campus. We also have student support systems. That's where you will get your assistance. And then lastly will be heavy workload. Who wants to work under pressure? Nobody wants to work under pressure, but then at some point we find ourselves working under pressure, and the majority of students might experience challenges using limited opportunities. And then also successful students take maximum advantage of their limited time and their benefits, of course. So the more you use your time to your benefit is the more now you're going to get everything that you have aimed for. Remember, when you get to university, you had a goal. Your goal is to get your degree. So if you work towards that, then everything will work like positively. And then moving on to our next slide, we don't only have the challenges, we also have the benefits of self-directed learning. So when it comes to the benefits of self-directed learning, as you're an independent learner, it provides you with the opportunity to learn as a student the most essential skills to becoming lifelong learner. You're not only leaving the information now, you're moving with it from your first year to graduation, right? So in self-directed learning now, it teaches you as a student how to learn, and then also again rather what to learn. So if you can learn how the concept or the topic can be interchangeable, then it will work best for you. And then again, learning is rooted in the application of your skills. It includes your thinking skills, it includes your research skills, your self-management skills, your social skills, your communication skills, because remembering now you're no longer with your parents, you're now independent, you're now on your own. You just need to know how to do things work for the best. And then these skills can then be applied to a multitude of different contexts and learning situations, both inside and outside of the classrooms, because some classes will be online, some will be face-to-face. So depending on that, you just need to know what's beneficial to you as a student. And then again, with self-directed learning, it gives you a further independent practice in comprehension strategies. That is very, very important, right? And then this is now where you read with a question in mind and activate curiosities along the way. You don't just read, you read with a certain purpose or a certain aim. So in this way, they connect, you connect as a student to the background knowledge and the schema of like, where does this module come from, or where does this subject come from, or what is expected of me. And then they monitor the comprehension when the evaluation text you're interacting with, and then now this determine the important parts of the text to also help you as a student to focus in specific inquiries that are expected of you as a student. And then again, learning, it increases the amount of time spent reading and writing. And then in order to learn more about the curiosities, you as a student must also become more proficient in comprehending and creating non-fiction text and visual models. As a result, authentic and purposeful literacy development occurs within an inquiry-based setting. And then lastly, you as a student, you are given the freedom to actually choose the who or the what and the where, and most importantly, the how. So you can choose to work independently, or you can choose to have a study partner. Some students prefer working in a classroom, in a quiet space. Some prefer working in a library, in a shared space. Some students, most of us would prefer to work at night, and then others during the day. So do what works well for you, because what works for me cannot always work for my friend. So just try out new strategies on how to do things. So that moving on to the next slide, we have what we call the Bloom's taxonomy. So now it indicates the levels of thinking and what action verbs is used to what. And it is therefore important for you as a student to know what is expected of them, and when a specific action verb is used. You'll see in your study guides, certain action verbs will be used, and then certain things will be expected from you. So you'll be required or always refer to your study guides for like frequently used action verbs. So on this slide, they have levels of thinking as a student from enrollment to graduation, because now remember the aim is to take you from enrollment to graduation. So there's 6 levels. So from remembering, it's remember, understand, and apply. So this is now where you are. You are at the first level, which is the remembering part. So the last 3 are actually categorized under the low order thinking, and then the top 3 are categorized under the higher order thinking. So now this is where you start to remember. This is where you're expected to retrieve relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Remember, we have a long-term memory and a short-term memory. Now you will recall facts and then also the concepts. This is now where you start by defining a certain concepts, by duplicating, by listing, by memorizing everything that you are taught in class. And then moving on to the second stage will now be understanding. You're still an undergraduate student, so your level of thinking is still there. You're expected to understand, to determine the meaning of instructional messages, including oral, written, and graphic communication. Now here, this is where you explain the concept. You classify, you describe, you discuss certain topics, and then you recognize certain things, and then you report back. So the third step moving on is to apply. This is now when you put the application in place. You carry out or use a procedure in a given situation, right? So this is now where you execute, you implement, you solve problems, you use certain examples, and then you start demonstrating, you operate, and then you schedule certain things, and then you start sketching, right? You start sketching that this is how I want the certain project to go or flow, or and etc. And then the fourth stage will be to analyze. When you start analyzing, you breaking material into the constituent part, and you actually detecting how the part relate to one another and to an overall structure of purpose. You draw connections among ideas. You have different ideas, so you start differentiating. What could this mean, and what could that mean, and how can I put them together? How do I organize certain topics? How do I relate to certain characteristics? How do I compare certain things? Now this is where you now again start distinguishing. You start examining how to do things, and then moving again to the upper level. That will be now where you start evaluating. When you evaluate, that will be you now starting to make judgment based on criteria and standard. You start appraising, you start arguing. Now you become argumentative. Now it means now you do know the topic, you are familiar with the topic. You start arguing it, you start defending it, you start judging it, you start selecting it. So you are actually becoming very strong academically. You actually know what you're doing, and then you actually trying to again criticizing it so that you can get to the end of what you have set up for yourself as a student. And then the last part at the top of the pyramid will be to create. So creating is putting elements together from a novel, coherent whole, or make an original product. Now you are a master. We now start to call you a master. You start designing, you start assemble, you start to construct, you start to conjecture, you start to develop. This is when you are in the stage. This is now where you start. Maybe say you start writing your dissertation. You start investigating. You start now being a researcher, being a master of what you do, so that you can show or like the world out there, or to start contributing to the body of knowledge, and then start criticizing everything that is done, especially when it comes to the academics. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Renette, so that he can give you an understanding of your modules.
Thank you, Katiwe. Thank you for this nice explanation of Bloom's taxonomy. I can just reflect from when I was a student, and especially when I was a first-year student, I did not know about these levels of thinking, and I would lose marks in a test, and I couldn't understand why. And when my lecturer explained, it makes so much sense. For example, the lecturer's question said, describe the following. But what I did, I just listed it. I didn't describe it. I listed it. So I took the list of 5 bullets and I put down the 5 bullets, and I thought I'm going to get 10 or 15 marks for that. But the lecturer said, no, I didn't want to test if you can remember these. I want to test if you can understand it. And that's why I used the word describe in my question. For you to know, I want to see if you understand this. So when I made that connection, I started to get my full marks for my questions because I didn't just list something if they asked me to describe it. I didn't just define a concept if they asked me to explain the concept. So this will, students will give you really that understanding of what is it that my lecturer wants from me? What is it that my lecturer is testing now? Are they testing my ability to remember something? Or are they testing my ability to apply something? So please go back when you start with your modules to Bloom's taxonomy and really go and get used to it more and get to know it more, because it will really help you to understand what's expected of you. Thank you, Katiwe. Now I'm moving on to understanding your modules specifically. You have different modules. In school, we talked about different subjects, but now you have different modules. And yes, you may have 3 modules that's quite the same. For example, 3 English modules or 3 management modules, but each of them will be seen as a different subject as you would refer to it previously in school. So what I want to now explain to you is how to understand what's expected of you. Now, the first thing that you have to take note of for each of your modules is your study guide. I said previously, you also call it a module overview document, and you can find this on eFundi for each of your modules. And this study guide, I always say it's all in the name. It is your guide to study. It guides your study to what you need to do to get this, to pass this module and to pass this module well. So first of all, the study guide will have information in it that's very essential to your success. For example, what will be your prescribed textbook that you need to buy or you need to get from the library? What's the credit load of this module? What is the specific module outcomes? In other words, what do I need to be able to do at the end of this module? It explains these frequently used action verbs, like Katiwe just explained in the Bloom's taxonomy. It explains maybe to you how marks for this module will be calculated. It gives you a structure of the module saying how many study units is part of this module, maybe outcomes for each of these study units. Also, it will make reference to additional resources that you maybe will need, or additional exercises you can do in preparation for assessments. And then lastly, sometimes the lecturers even add tips for you for this specific module on how to be successful in it. So please take note of your study guide and make sure you know your study guide. Moving on to learning outcomes is another thing you will hear about a lot. And according to the Northwest University A rules, the definition of learning outcomes are as follows. It is precise, measurable, realistic, and attainable assessment statements of the minimum expected standards of competence that students must achieve upon completion of a study unit or a learning task in a module. So in other words, your learning outcomes tells you what you should be able to do at the end of that study unit or that module or that program. And a study tip I always give to students when doing academic advising is to, when you are making notes, change these study unit outcomes into questions, because that will really help you to identify what is relevant and necessary when you work through that whole big textbook of yours. Now, I've referred to credits previously, and I just quickly want to explain to you what credits mean. So all programs has a certain total amount of credits. These credits are the total of all the credits amounts of each module that you need to complete to obtain this specific degree program. So each module's credits indicates the weight of that module within the degree or in the semester or in the year. So these credits give an indication of how much time on average a student should invest into the module in order to complete it successfully. So the modules are more or less equally distributed over the duration of the qualification and also between the semesters. And this information, like the example that I have for you now, you can find it in your faculty yearbook. Here you will see that this curriculum of this program has a total of 368 credits, and it's divided into the 3 years to 120, 120, and 128. And within the 2 semesters, 60, 60, second year, 60, 60, third year, 64, 64. And I want you to take note when you look at your yearbook of what is the credit allocation for each module. You will sometimes see that one module has 8 credits allocated, but another module has 16 credits allocated. And because I said it's an indication of the weight of the module, you must immediately make the connection that, okay, so the 16 credit module will need double as much attention as the 8 credit module because the weight is so much more. Let's quickly do the math. On average, a full-time degree program has 120 credits in a year. Now, 1 credit equals 10 notional hours. And these notional hours includes all the time that you spend on this module, in this credit. For example, class preparation, time spent in the class, time spent working on your assignment, maybe attending practicals or tutorials or SI sessions, making your notes, and even studying for those tests and exams, even sitting in the exam room. So all of these hours together, that's the notional hours. So 1 credit equals 10 notional hours. So you as a student, when you do your planning, need to tell yourself, for this 8 credit module, I will need to invest 80 notional hours to complete it successfully. And that's the average student. So you know yourself, maybe you're going to need more, maybe you're not going to need less. But on average, for an 8 credit module, you need to invest 80 notional hours. So let's do the math. Full-time study degree program, 120 credits equals 1,200 hours per year. It sounds a lot, but if you divide it by the 40 academic weeks in a year, it gets you to 30 hours per week study and learning time. And that is totally doable. If you plan ahead and you organize your time, you can be successful in all your modules. Thank you, Katiwe. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Renee. Just to elaborate more on what you just said, planning ahead and be organized on time. I actually have this 6 Ps that I always or normally go by. It's prior proper planning prevents poor performance. So if you didn't get that the first time, prior proper planning prevents poor performance. So moving on to this slide is student academic development and support program. So Renette and myself are from a unit called SETS. So we have different programs that we're offering to the students. So everything has been clear. I wish I actually got that type of information while I was still at university, like knowing the number of credits that I have to take, the notional hours especially. So thank you so much, Renette. I'm certain from other sessions presented by other colleagues from SETS that you as a student will get a clear understanding on the programs offered within Center for Teaching and Learning. So this is a few of our programs that we offer. So firstly, we have academic advising. This is now where we assist our students with different type of assistance, be it your time management, your note taking, and other things. So we do this one-on-one, face-to-face, or we also have a webinar. So you need to be on the lookout on the website. And then we also have tutorials when you're a student, when you're struggling with a certain module, you can actually be in contact with the tutor so that they can assist you throughout the semester, throughout the year. We also have academic peer mentoring. If you search on the website, you'll know more about that. And then supplemental instructions, maths and stat center. If you're struggling, you're doing your maths, you're doing your stats, we have your tutors there waiting to assist you. And then the reading development. We know how difficult it is sometimes to transition to university. You don't know how to read faster, or you don't know how to actually articulate yourself. So if you attend the reading development classes, then you'll be better in communicating with your fellow students. And then we also have what we call the first year navigator, which now takes us to the next slide. With this first navigator, your gateway to academic success. Remember now the aim as stakeholders, as Center for Teaching and Learning, as says, are we actually aiming at assisting you as a student to navigate through campus resources, or to know who is who on campus, who can assist you with what? Remember, you're not only here to attend your classes and then exit the university. You're here to actually join certain different societies, to be assisted in so many ways. So if you go onto the website, a link will be shared with you. If you go onto Ifundi, this is where you'll find all the important contact details for one-on-one or online assistance. So our staff members are always there, willing to assist you as a student. Remember, we are because you are here. And then moving on to our next slide. Yeah, I think this is going to be our next slide before the video. Thank you so much for attending today's session, ladies and gentlemen. And before we end off this session, we're now going to play you a video on student experience with studying at Northwest University. Please watch with us and share on the comments section what you think, or just give us your opinion of the video, because I believe that the students who are on that video were once first-year students, were once given an orientation. So I just want to share the experience with you. So enjoy.
Thank you, Katiwe. From my side, students as well, thank you for attending this session. We are looking forward to see your comments in the comment section below. We are online to answer your questions as well. Enjoy the video and enjoy the rest of your year at university.
I asked myself if I would make friends, and I wish someone told me that I would. So my advice to you is that even if it doesn't happen immediately, eventually it will. I joined student societies and participated in faculty activities, and I can tell you, by putting myself out there, I got to know many people and I made new friends.
I was so worried about finding time in everything and keeping up with my studies. Getting in a routine, setting up a schedule to stay on top of my studies. My advice would be to build in some downtime for yourself, exercise, and spend time with friends. You can always maintain a balance between being a responsible student and having a social life.
To be honest, guys, I was really worried about if I will excel academically, and that became a joy stealer for me. So my advice to you is that you stay focused, believe in yourself, constantly work hard, and always remember that for every obstacle that you come across or challenges that you come across, it's a step towards you achieving your goal. Always believe in yourself and make yourself proud.
It's easy to become admitted in this university, but it's difficult for you to become a graduate. Here are some few tips that will help you to become a graduate. Firstly, you need to learn how to use your money effectively. Secondly, it's important for you to look for proper, safe, and secured accommodation. You can apply for on-campus residences and also off-campus residences. Are you ready to meet new friends? Well, Northwest University is a great place to meet new friends. Remember, you need to choose friends wisely. Do not hesitate to seek for help from people who can actually help you. I'm talking about your lecturers, student instructors, tutors, academic peer mentors, and also your peers.
Don't ever allow your background to determine your future. Where you're coming from doesn't have to determine your success. You are your own model. You are your own hero. And focus on that. Make sure that you achieve your goals that you have set. If you make mistake, reflect back from those mistakes and make sure that you doesn't allow negativity to conquer your prosperity. When you get feedback from lectures, value it and take it to the heart. Remember, you must always have an end game in mind.
Set yourself up for social interactions. This includes forming small social and study groups, joining WhatsApp groups, and also using other various methods of communication with your fellow student mates. It's also very important to set up for your modules and also to meet with your fellow campus students. It's also very important to attend classes and to engage in your class activities.
Hard work pays off. Procrastination doesn't. Never give up. If you're experiencing any challenges, it is important to reach out to your lecturers, your tutors, your mentors, SI leaders, and academic advisors. Make use of all the different support services and resources that the NWU has to offer.